We have some special guests here tonight, which I'd like to acknowledge. My immediate past president, Ian Mitchell, where are you, Ian? Just over there, welcome. Thank you. A former president and life member, Stuart Hamilton, AO, just over here, and thank you, Stuart, and his wife, Sue, for coming along. We have the East Melbourne Historical Society's Vice President, Barbara Patterson. Barbara, thank you for coming along as well. And to the many committee members of the East Melbourne group who are here tonight assisting. I do have an apology from our new Vice President, Jenny Owen, who was unable to make it due to family commitments. So let's make a start. There's a couple of rules here tonight. Rules are always good in candidate environments, I think. The first one, you might be surprised, respectful interaction. We ask that everyone here conducts themselves in a respectful and professional manner. Understanding that we live in a pluralist society, differing opinions are expected. Other thing we'd like to do is keep to time. Candidates, you'll initially be given 3 minutes each to speak. A bell will be rung at 2 minutes 30, and then again at 3 minutes, and we ask that you finish. We ask that you keep to this time, please. We will then have questions from the floor, and we'll have allowed 30 minutes for this, but we can extend that if you would like. We ask that you direct your questions to the candidate you are seeking a response from. Other candidates will have 1 minute to speak to the question if they desire. Candidates and guests, remember, after the formal part of the evening, there will be an opportunity to answer any further questions you may have or wish to clarify with the candidates. So let's get started. In the most democratic manner we could come up with, we have the candidates' names in a box, and we'll draw them out randomly to determine the order of speaking. So, young man here, are you able to come up the front for me?
Thank you.
I thought you meant me. What's your name?
I'm Xavier.
You speak into here?
I'm Xavier.
Xavier, how old are you?
I'm 11 years old now.
Okay, and why did you decide to come along here tonight?
Well, my parents were going and I like politics as well.
Fantastic. What do you hope to learn about tonight?
I just hope to learn about what they think is the best reason they should be up and running.
Fantastic. So if you could put your hand in here and draw out the first candidate, they're going to speak for 3 minutes for us. Oh.
Adam Van.
Well done. Adam, if you could come up to the microphone, you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thanks again for having me here, and it's just great to be able to be here physically together with everyone in this wonderful space. I also want to acknowledge the traditional owners, the Wurundjeri people, and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. It's great to be here and to see so many familiar faces, and it's been my absolute delight and privilege to be working so closely with the East Melbourne community over so many years now. I know we've helped put on exhibitions in this space, worked together on the issue of aircraft noise, which is something that has required us to go from everywhere from the local to the state to the federal government, having meetings with the Deputy Prime Minister, taking the issue up, working out what the changes are that need to be made to fix it, and coming up with a solution, I think, that will work, and we now need the political will at the federal level to actually make it happen. And also, it's great to, I want to acknowledge the work that's been done here by the EMG in particular about keeping everyone connected together during what has been a pretty difficult time for us over the last little while. It's also been my pleasure to work together so consistently on development issues and heritage issues. One of the things about us as the Greens is that we don't take money, don't take donations from developers. And one of the concerns that we have is that the things that are good about Melbourne, and particularly things that are good about this area, are increasingly under threat from development, and the planning laws and the heritage laws that we've got aren't necessarily working, and they need to be fixed. And as someone who is in a party that doesn't take those donations from the big corporations, we fight for the community, and we always fight for the community and put the community first, and we're free to do so, and we'll continue to do so. And not only am I going to continue to take that fight up at whatever level of government it needs to be taken up at, our office also remains available for you as a community to use, including when we're wanting to fight development applications or fighting for things that will benefit the local area. But there's also a federal election, and we've got some pretty big issues to tackle. One of those big issues, I think, is integrity in politics. And at this election, we're calling very strongly, we think it's time for a change of government. And I think one there's probably a number of reasons for that, but I think one of the emblematic reasons is that when the Prime Minister says they're going to introduce an integrity commission and then doesn't, then it tells you a lot about the integrity of the government. And that, for us, is something we want to see change and see an integrity commission. We're pushing to get dental and mental health into Medicare, which is something that would make a big difference to people right across the country. To tackle the housing affordability crisis by having government just invest and build a lot more public and affordable housing. But probably the number one issue, I would say, is climate change. Is that the 3 minutes?
Thank you, Adam.
I will finish on 3 minutes, and you can ask me more questions about climate change in the Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you. Next candidate, who wants to pull that one out of the hat? Actually, Mitch, you can do that for me. Thank you, Anne. Bruce Boo.
Hello everyone, I'm Bruce Boo and I'm the Animal Justice Party's candidate for the seat of Melbourne. I also want to pay my respects to the Indigenous inhabitants of this land, the Wurundjeri, and pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. They had a connection with this land for a very long time. So you probably know the Greens. Not everybody knows about the Animal Justice Party, even though we've been running in elections since 2013. And we're a party that's built on the central value of kindness to all. Humans, other animals, and the planet we live on. So radical kindness, that's our perspective, and that's what we bring to politics. And we've formed this party because we saw the problems that the planet faced and that animals faced around the world. And a lot of the greatest underlying the greatest underlying cause of so many problems in the world is the way we treat animals. You can't get to net zero without addressing emissions from animal agriculture. We've got to reduce the herd size, and the IPCC report most recently is very clear that we have to change diets. The biodiversity crisis and the extinction crisis in Australia and around the world is only worsened by the size and scale of animal agriculture. So apart from climate, the habitat loss, invasive species, overexploitation and pollution of the land, air and water, animal agriculture is the big underlying cause. If we want to stop a pandemic century, now is the time to end factory farming, fur farms, wet markets, from whence they spring. Antibiotic resistance is another great emerging threat to the health of the world, and it comes about mainly because we feed 60 to 80% of the world's antibiotics to animals used in agriculture. If you want a vibrant economy, we'll need to embrace modern farming and new foods. So animal issues aren't irrelevant to what people want. They're often surprisingly central. So our party wants a healthy food system to enhance health and prevent future pandemics. For the planet, a change to the economic system to put the planet over profit, to rewild some of the land that we've currently taken over and protect nature and urgently address the climate emergency. So every vote for the Animal Justice Party sends a message to the other parties that animals do matter, that they have to be addressed, and every vote is an increase in our political leverage, which we use to bargain for better outcomes. I was very pleased today to see the Labor Party committing to an end to the live export of sheep, while our policy, of course, goes further to the end of live export for all animals to all countries and all seasons. We were very pleased to see a difference between the major parties emerge, and that's possible if you can vote for the AJP. Thank you.
Patterson. Thank you, Keith.
Thank you to the East Melbourne Group for holding this forum. It's essential for our democracy that MPs and candidates are accountable to the communities that they serve, not just at election time, but all the time. Community organisations like this one and your advocacy keep our democracy alive, so thank you. I also acknowledge that we meet on the unceded lands of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people of the mighty Kulin Nation, and I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. We say this not as a formality, but as a sincere acknowledgement that this always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Labor fully supports the Uluru Statement from the Heart and will, in government, implement it in full. Before becoming a candidate, I worked in mental health, specifically programs to make workplaces more mentally healthy. Many people have asked me, why in that case would you want to be in Parliament? I'm an active volunteer in the local community. Whether it's tutoring at Homework Club or writing a column in my local paper, I've been on community boards, and I was until recently president of the 50,000 strong bicycle network. I'm a parent of 3 teenage girls, and I care desperately about the world that we're leaving to them. For me, this is why 2022 is the most important election in living memory. Labor has a vision for the future, one based on care, with significant investments in and reforms of Medicare, aged care, childcare, and the NDIS. After 9 years of toxic climate politics, Labor will take real and immediate action, transitioning to 82% renewables by 2030, creating 600,000 new green energy jobs, building a foundation for a transition away from coal and gas. And we will bid to bring the next global climate conference of the parties to Australia and push for greater global commitments. And that's the only way that we'll actually make significant progress on climate. On asylum seekers, we'll get rid of temporary protection visas and implement a 90-day limit on detentions. And Labor will double Australia's current humanitarian intake. The federal sphere is failing in its role of in heritage conservation. So while the development decisions often sit with local and state government, the federal EPBD Act is no longer fit for purpose and urgently needs an overhaul, and I'll commit to that along the lines of the recommendations of Graham Samuel. Workers will not be returning to the city full time, and we need to adapt to that. And livability and a strong residential sector is really important to the recovery of this city and the city fringe, like East Melbourne. Now, under a hung parliament scenario, the incumbent PM gets the first chance to form a minority government. So whether with Katter or independents, Morrison could form government in a hung parliament. This election is too important to take that risk. If you want a Labor government, if you want action, not words, and if you want progress, not promises, vote Labor. Thank you.
Walter Stragan from Pauline Hanson's One Nation. Thank you, Walter. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, everybody. Walter Stragan. I'm running for the Regional seat of Melbourne under One Nation, Pauline Hanson One Nation. I want to clarify a statement to Mr. Adam Band, and that is basically I will not be retracting my statement made 2 weeks ago at another forum. My family left Ukraine and came to Australia to have a better life, not to have a hostile life. Only to now find myself in a supposedly free country facing a government who only wants more and more control over our lives under the pretext of public health. Public health should not be used as a pretext to strip our citizens
now
rights to silence doctors and other health professionals who cannot undertake their professions. Teachers who have lost their jobs, professional health, nurses who have lost their jobs because of the mandates. There's only 2 states in Australia that are now forcing mandates. Victoria is one of them. Teachers have been forced. 2,500 teachers lost their jobs. Where there is a risk, there must be a choice. And there is no medical or science evidence that does not carry the risk. Therefore, instead of punishing and humiliating people in taking the vaccine, perhaps we should speed up and educate people on the efficiency of the vaccine and putting efforts to procure other types of vaccines not involved in the mRNA technology, as that is the biggest contributor to the vaccine hesitancy. Now that I've clarified that matter, I'd like to continue. Why am I standing? I'm standing because I believe in justice, freedom and democracy and free speech. A lot of people are being silenced in the last 2 years because of pandemics. We can't talk, we can't make our statements. Vaccines have been basically stopped. Ivermectin has been stopped as one of them. Secondly, what has this government done, the three major parties, what they have done in the last 3 years? What have they done for pensioners? Please explain. What have they done for small business? I'm an accountant by trade. I've seen a lot of people bankrupt, going to liquidation, families losing their homes because of banks. Small businesses are to the wall. What have they done? Please explain, government. What about our national debt, over trillions of dollars? How's that going to be fixed? Pauline Hanson's got a recipe. All the multinational companies that we have in Australia, they will not pay any tax. They haven't paid tax for years. And I will basically make sure that they do not get away with not paying any tax. I stand for One Nation. If you want change in the government, vote for Pauline Hanson, One Nation, for the seat of Melbourne under Walter Stragan. Thank you.
Was she part of
It was my guess.
Has Adam Band spoken? I think he must have been first.
Thanks very much for inviting us. I think it's particularly kind to include people from the smaller parties, and particularly hard on the majors, and in this seat that certainly includes the Greens. I'm from a party that's been going for 20 years. It has a small representation. It's a small government, low tax party looking for market solutions. We're overlapping with, in some areas, with the United Australia Party, in some areas with One Nation, but we're very consistently stick to classical liberal principles and a libertarian approach of keeping out of your lives as much as possible. I'm sure many of you here know each other through your local community activism over the heritage values of the area. I'm sorry, I just can't address that. I'm very sympathetic to it. Adam's looked into the aircraft approach routes. I work in East Melbourne and see the aircraft rising, but I confess I'm looking through double glazed windows and just enjoy seeing them back in the air again. So I don't know what it's like to be out in